Board games, board games, it's what we're talking about. Publishing board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and over there below me is the self-publisher known as Andy, and over there, this is bliss. It is lovely to see Janice, and we are all self-publishers today. That's the hats that we have on, as we're going to say and talk about self-publishing and board games. It's what we're talking about. Self-publishing board games. I'm not gonna shout. Hello everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, and this is episode 360 of Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. I am streaming every day at 10 AM UK time for the next 40 days, and today we are having a bit of a ponder about self-publishing with Janice and Andy. We're going to be talking about why we chose to self-publish things rather than pitch. We'll be talking about whether games are an expression of the self. We'll be talking about what we're going to do going forwards, whether we'll do this again or whether we would recommend it to other people. And of course, we will have a couple of quick regular sections, recent highlights, and maybe a brilliant thing if anyone can think of one for the next 10-15 minutes. So let's get started, as always, going clockwise, starting with Janice. If you're ready, could you give a very quick introduction of yourself and talk about one or two of your recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. Janice, who are you and what have you been up to?
I'm Janice. I'm one half of Rain Games. We do small, short, puzzly kind of games. Main requirement initially was that they fit in nap time for children, or at least they fit around the short amounts of time you have with young children and the exhaustion that they bring. Recent highlights, I'm not sure actually. It's been just like a completely manic time recently. I think the recent highlight was seeing the final box art for our latest game. That was seeing it from the flat art to the full texture was really brilliant. I love that. So yeah, Pilgrim Pandas, which is the current game we're working on. It was brilliant to see that art finally come to fruition.
Yeah, that looks just lovely. And Antoinette's been doing a great job of sharing it with everyone and typing it up a wee bit,
she has,
as far as I can see. But Andy Hopwood, who are you, and what are some of your recent highlights? Oh, you're muted.
There you go. So yes, I am Andy Hopwood. You're correct. Well done. 10 points to Bez. So I've self-published. Foolishly, several games in various different ways. I'm not sure if I have a type of game that I make. It tends to be, a lot of people come to me and say, this game isn't like the last game you made, I don't like it. So it's kind of, that's what I tend to get a lot of. But my recent highlights is that I've tried making a game to somebody else's specifications, and that's been quite interesting. Yes, indeed. And also another recent highlight, I went to the pub last night for a beer in a freezing cold garden with one of my best mates. So that was a
So you went to the pub for what? Firstly, yeah, it's kind of a sign of the times. What is it? 1st of May 2021. And it's a sign of the times that going to the pub is a big highlight as lockdown is starting to end. But what's Albia that you mentioned?
Say again?
You said you went to the pub for Albia?
Right, I might have got a cut off there. I went to the pub for a beer.
Oh, Oh, I do
of the
apologise.
alcoholic variety. I've probably, my internet has probably ruined it, that sentence.
But that is definitely a highlight. And I look forward to hearing a wee bit more on another day, maybe, about that game. And a quick hello to Timmy. It is lovely to see you. As for myself, what I've been up to, I have been playing a wee bit of Braid recently. I played that on Steam. I previously played through it on Xbox 360, and yeah, it is such a beautiful game. Are you familiar with this video game? It's not a board game, it's a video game, but I sometimes talk about those as well. Have either of you played this one? Okay, so Braid is a game involving time travel. And in the first world, it's like Mario, you're in a little business suit. And, oh, hello, Jay Folsgard, lovely to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. And you're jumping along in the first world, you can rewind time, and you've got a few puzzles of, okay, how do you get to the puzzle pieces? Going left to right and just getting to the end of the level is ridiculously easy. All the puzzle pieces that you've got, I think, 12 of in each world for a total of maybe 60. So it's not, each one is its own little puzzle, if you know what I mean. Sometimes you get into a world where green things are unaffected by time travel. So as you rewind time, the green things just carry on moving. And then you've got to work out, okay, how do I change things? Or in another world, you're able to slow down time in a localized area. And it really, I thought it was going to be fairly easy because I solved all the puzzles, you know, I don't know when it was first released, but I solved all the puzzles. I've already done it, but obviously I've forgotten them all. And so it was quite a struggle, and I'm only maybe halfway through. So yeah, it's good fun.
Is it easier? Surely it's easier the second time round, or
for sure it's easier. For sure it's easier.
It's harder to solve puzzles.
I mean, like, just I've forgotten them, and so I've got to work out the solution again. It's not like I see something that, oh yes, that's, I'm sure some of that memory helps, but yeah. And yes, 100%, the developer was indeed Jonathan Blow, who went on to do Time Traveler, a game where, yeah, you're kind of solving these puzzles and as you're walking around an uninhabited island. But for me, Braid was just a beautiful thing. There's a nice story. It's kind of flipping the trope of, if you enjoy platformers, if you enjoy time travel, which I do, if you enjoy vague stories about love and possibly the atomic bomb, then you will definitely enjoy this game. It's one of my all-time favorites. And Timmy in the chat says, I finished filling my taxes 25 minutes before the deadline. That is a highlight. Congratulations. That does seem like a good achievement. So well done. And let's go to some questionably quick questions. What time is it? Where exactly are you? Here I am in Northern London. It is 10:09. Janice.
It's the same time, luckily, and I'm a little bit further south, just near Southampton.
Andy?
I'm in Birmingham. I'm in the northwestern corner of my office.
And it is apparently 6:09 in Nova Scotia. So, if anyone has any questionably quick questions, then get them in the next minutes or two. Otherwise, I am going to ask you, what is the best game you've played recently that isn't one of your own games? You don't have to...
Well, mine's easy because I haven't actually played a huge number of games. We're mostly playing Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective. And the last case was actually a pretty good one. I'm about to move on to box 4, which is, I think, meant to be the best of the boxes. So we're really looking forward to that.
Exciting.
So I've played King Domino a couple of times and managed to get all of the gold mines all connected. And I managed to score 50 points with 5 squares. And my son can probably hear me through the wall now, and I beat him by quite a lot of points. He normally beats me, to be fair, so that's quite a highlight as well. On Board Game Arena, I've played a lot of Race for the Galaxy recently, which the more I play it, the more I love it. Superb game. Superb game.
I'm going to stick with Brady. Unfortunately, I've not played any board games since I came down to London, which is a wee bit sad. But yeah, there you go. We do have one questionably quick question. Do you like Twizzlers? I'm trying to remember what Twizzlers are. I know Twiglets, which are the little marmitey,
They're the little
twiggy
round
things.
sweets.
Twizzlers.
Are they something in Nova? Is that the lady from Nova Scotia?
Nova Scotia, yeah. I mean, I've definitely seen Twizzlers, but I'm going to say no, not because I dislike them, but because I don't actively like them, because I don't know them. That is just...
Oh, so they're twisty strawberry straw things.
I'm going to say, on the basis that I only know them from the name, from the word, I like
strawberry. I like strawberry laces, if that counts.
I
think the Twizzler ones are always a bit, if they're white, yeah, what they've come up with. Those are always a little bit chewy. I much prefer strawberry laces. So, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
It could also be a friendly name for like a tornado. It's like you were trying to soften the tornado stereotype. Then
that's quite a Twizzler. Blowing everything here and there. So let me move you around. Andy or Janice, we're going to have to collaborate. We're going to have to think of a brilliant thing. What's the little thing which is brilliant?
Collaborating. I like it. So
what is a thing that is brilliant? Or would you like to suggest that self-publishing itself is brilliant?
I guess it has its moments.
Okay, let's say
based on the past week, I would say no.
But you know what?
I've been hitting my head against the wall most of the past week.
I said to my wife, I'm going to be talking with other self-publishers, and then it's like it's going to be really interesting because these are people who will know exactly what we go through, and it's like no, it's not always brilliant. It's a massive roller coaster, isn't it? It has those horrible low moments and those brilliant highs, and so yeah, overall, I'm glad I do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm glad I do it. I learned so much by doing it. Yeah, but it has its ups and it has its downs, definitely.
Like, if we want to say that it is a brilliant thing for the sake of the discussion, I mean, what you said about learning stuff, I think that's a big part of why I went to do it. And I wasn't going to get into this until later, but you've got the learning, you've got the control, you can be your own control freak. You potentially get more returns if it turns out well. But is there any other reason why you think self-publishing is brilliant?
It's your own little playground to experiment in.
Is that Janice?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't catch the question. So.
Yeah, so it's your own little playground that you can experiment in. You can try all sorts of new things, and the risk is all your own. So the sort of things that it ties very much in with the learning, but you can try new things, and if it fails, it's only yourself. But you can sort of do little dabbles and little trials, and that's the fantastic thing, is that you have that chance to try different things. So like if you want to go and do, I don't know, learn about Facebook advertising, or if you want to go and learn how to use a graphic design program, or whatever you want to do, you can go and do it in the relative safety that the only person you're letting down really is yourself. And so, yeah, I guess there can be financial consequences, but you can keep those relatively low to start with. And it's just this great playground to play, learn, understand, and that sort of thing. So that's what I love.
That's a really good point. And at the end, you get this massive sense of pride. Sorry, Andy.
I was going to say, I absolutely agree with that. It is the brilliant part of it is the freedom to do. Nobody's telling you what you can and can't do. So it's literally you can do anything. But as always, freedom always comes at a price. So it's yeah, you do have to, if you're prepared to fail, fall down, learn, get back up again, then it's brilliant. And I feel like I know so much now about making games because I've failed so many times that if you want to make one game, be prepared to have 99 fail. That's what I say. So, but
for sure.
It all, I don't know if I've frozen there, but the freedom of it all is that you can go away and make 99 failures and then make one great game, because nobody's standing over your shoulder saying, "Well, hang on, this has got to work, otherwise you're out of a job." So, is that?
I think that's what it all comes down to, and I think, as you were alluding to, and Stan Lee is so often used to enjoy writing for Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, I don't want any responsibility.
So we're going to now get into the main bits of the show. As always, I remind people to feel free to comment, ask questions, from like, follow. I am going to limit the questions that we answer to the more on-topic things, but I hope that you are interested by the rest, and we will get into self-publishing. So let's start with the first question, which is, why did we choose at the start to self-publish? I know for me, it was a lot to do with, I think I was drawn to it. I think for me, it was the power and the freedom and the notion of pride and wanting to make my own little thing. What about you, Janice?
Sorry, there may be a little bit of exciting noise in the background, but kids have just got home from martial arts. So for me, it was actually, I was bored, and I wanted to try something new, and yeah, just kind of push myself. And I also wanted something that was my own, which is kind of how I got into game design. Having kids, it kind of, you realise that you've lost all your hobbies. And then, so firstly, the game design gave me a hobby back that I could have as my hobby kind of thing. And then the self-publishing, I was a bit bored in my day job, and so it kind of gave me fulfillment that I wasn't necessarily getting completely in my day job. And yeah, it allowed me to play, it allowed me to create my own thing. I never thought of myself as creative or innovative, but I guess it has allowed me to prove to myself that maybe I can be. So yeah, it's just this way to give myself something. They're washing their hands if you can hear the happy birthday songs. Yeah, so yeah, that was it. It was to challenge myself, give me something interesting, exciting to do, and to create something, because creating something is brilliant. It's a real great sense of achievement at the end when you hold your box and, yeah, I did this. It's brilliant. Well, let's turn the noise off.
If I could, yeah,
that really is brilliant when you hold that. I mean, my most recent game has got one of these on. I've got a barcode on the game now, so I'm over the moon with that. So all the people that have supported me over these years, I've always said, you know, one day I'll have a game with a barcode on. But so I had brain surgery. I've made games for years for my friends and family, just because I had a need to get my ideas down on paper. And it's almost like, without getting too psychological, it's almost like it's like justifying what I do. If nobody else is doing it, nobody else is seeing my game or playing my game, even if it's just one person, then what am I doing it for? And I'm really jealous of people that can sort of like self-justify, and they sort of like, they do something and they go, yeah, I'm brilliant because I did that thing, and nobody else needs to know about it. But I need to know that at least one person has gone, well done, Andy, you did all right there. But so I had brain surgery, and I thought, do you know what? I want to actually, when you face the concept of not being around anymore, you kind of want to put something out there that may outlive you. So it's a sort of a sense of leaving a footprint on the world.
Wait, so children aren't enough for you?
Oh, that's a good point. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but they become their own personal game. It embodies you.
You can't
There you go.
child. I've discovered you're not allowed to indelibly mark your child with your name, so it's apparently,
You kind of do. I mean, their last names often sticks with your name for quite a long while.
But,
So it's indelibly marked on legal documents. Yeah, but barcoding them, yeah, that would be.
Yeah, when your children reach the age of 16, just because they become their own independent adults, force them to get tattoos.
You're only allowed a tattoo if you have this tattoo. It would be a 16th birthday present. Here you go, you're having a tattoo, and this is it.
You can have any tattoo you like, but at some point, can you please find somewhere on the packaging to put this barcode? And the CE mark, or whatever the mark is now we've left Europe.
Honestly,
yeah,
I
can't guarantee that the kid's going to be child-friendly forever.
And now I've got the concept of what do you put a choking hazard thing on it or not?
It depends if they start sticking their fingers down other people's throats or not.
I mean, anything can be a choking hazard. Like a car can be a choking hazard if you slice it up and then use the piece.
Slicing children up.
When I was making Mind Leap, I had somebody when the what they called the people who trading standards people. Somebody came there to my house to check my game out, and they said the pieces are 30 mil across, and they said if you make them 32 mil, they won't be a choking hazard. 30 mil is a choking hazard. 32 mil isn't. And I said, how do you test that? How do you know that? And they said, oh, we have a way of testing it in the office. At which point I said, you don't have children in the office, do you? You sort of like, you pop bits of games into. And she said, no, we have a tube, and the tube represents a child's throat, and we put things down here.
Yeah, I was shown this at one of the toy fairs, and then I actually got this wee tube, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're giving away these tubes for free." Our company was all about, checking stuff, and he said, "Oh yeah, if there's no way for your piece to fit in this tube, then it's fine. But if it kind of fits in the tube, then it's definitely a choking hazard. But on the other hand, if it's teeny tiny, then it's probably okay if it's going to pass through the intestines and come out the other end, okay."
It's mad that 2 millimeters makes a difference. I'm sure there's somebody out there with a slightly larger throat who probably could choke on one of my pieces if they tried very hard. But it's just that fit within the.
Well, there has to be a number for any legal thing.
Yeah. And
it's probably I don't know, like 30 millimeters with a 10% tolerance on it, or something, or just under 10% tolerance. So I'm guessing if they've probably got a number, then they've got a tolerance on it, and then that's the final number.
But you kind of leads you to wonder, maybe we should just say, don't choke on any of the pieces in any game, regardless of the size of them. And,
even if you've got jumbo pieces.
If we just say every game, you could hurt yourself on every game. I mean,
you get paper cuts.
I could hit somebody pretty hard with that. I mean,
this isn't why you started self-publishing games, Andy. You did not self-publish. I did not start self-publishing to bash people in the head. I mean, honestly.
Too small a box for that.
Andy, if I was throwing these at a high velocity, especially if it caught you in the eye, if it knocks off your glasses, I think it could do some serious damage. Okay, anyway, let's not get into that.
Let's you and me.
No, Andy.
Well, I think there's a new game in the creating here, although there is already throw burrito.
Hello, Alan.
We're getting into those sort of territory.
Andy is taking us dangerously off topic about violence in board games. But I should say violence with board games rather than violence in board games.
I've got somebody. We made a game called Six. Greg Castle, JP Trino, made a game called Six, which is loads of dice in a tin, and which I haven't got here. But I encourage people to come up with their own ideas to put in the game. So it's 15 dice of different sizes and a tin. And the idea was the rules fitted onto a tiny business card. And so a friend of mine from folk camps, he who did a lot of role-playing game stuff, he used to put board games, real board games, in his role-playing games. And they used to, if you were in the tavern and you played a game, then it would go, this is the game we're going to play. And they actually played it. And they created this game with six where they would throw the dice at each other. And the idea was the dice would bounce off a part of the body and land back on the table. But the trick is it couldn't fall off the table. It had to land back on the table, showing a number. And then you multiplied the number by how much pain you had caused the person that you threw the dice at.
How do you measure the pain?
How loud they shouted.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't print that. I decided to walk away from those ideas. I didn't want people throwing my games at each other.
And hello, Alex. I'm glad that we can agree that we don't want to incite actual physical violence with our games. But why did we actually choose to do it? We've talked about validation. We've talked about self-expression. Let me ask you, did you even try to reach out to established publishers before you published your first game? For me, in the case of In a Bind, no, I didn't. And the truth is that I had free offers for publication before I paid anyone any money to mass produce it. I think I got one offer for publication from a company that I still have massive respect for before the Kickstarter was finished. He said, hey, you may or may not finish this Kickstarter. Either way, we are very interested in this game. We would be able to get it into Barnes & Noble. And would you be interested to work with us? And I was thinking, wow, this is a really interesting deal. They offered me, industry standard terms. But I decided to do it because I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn about it. I wanted to have that pride of having one version that I've done it. Do you know what I mean? And I did also think that In a Bind, it could be a really big game. It felt like it could sell 1 million copies, which it hasn't yet, but it still could do. And, it felt like I should maybe hold out a wee bit. And I'm glad I did. But, yeah, that's kind of my story with, I just didn't, at the start, it took me a long time until I got comfortable with the notion of actually pitching and going off to companies to say, hey, would you like this? And I think there's definitely a hassle of self-publishing, but there's also a hassle of pitching. Let's not beat around the bush. And it's which one are you more comfortable with? Are you more comfortable with showing it to someone and then having that rejection and then making another meeting and having that rejection? And maybe after a few times they do something and then they change it. Is that the process you want to go through? Or are you wanting to go for all the sweats and time investments and then maybe even don't make any money at all? And then, but at least it's yours and you can do whatever you want and the ownership. So yeah, Janice, and then I'll rotate the people around. Have you ever tried to pitch to someone, and did you try to do it before your first game?
So I was kind of like doing 2 games in parallel to start with. I had a much bigger game which I called The Maiden Voyage, which I did try pitching. But my main issue with it was, at the time, I had a small baby and it was a sort of 60 to 90 minute game, and playtesting it became near impossible because I could get maybe 1 test per nap time if I was lucky. And so that one was one I did look at pitching, and I tried the couple, and I just didn't like the way the publishers treated me. I think they almost came back no, but I was kind of relieved because I didn't like their attitude. I guess is kind of the way it was. But with Assembly, no, I didn't pitch that to start with. That one, it was a small game. It was low risk. It was something I wanted to do myself. But now that it's near enough out of stock, it's something I'm seriously considering is actually now licensing the design so I can focus on my next designs and focus on the fun bit of creating, and then let someone else worry about the sort of the longevity of the actual game, because I mean it's been selling well for the past 2 and a bit years, with it sort of selling much better this year than previous year. So it's got legs, and I really want it to continue, but I would have to sacrifice Kusa's like the new for the old, and that's like a really hard thing at the moment. So I'll see what happens this year, and if doesn't get anywhere, then I might look at sort of doing it and relaunching it next year, maybe with themes, new mini expansions or something in there, or hopefully maybe someone else will pick it up and take it on, and then I can focus on something else, something new. So yeah, so I'm sort of in the middle there. That I like that creating something that is my vision first. Once I've created that, I don't mind someone else taking it and putting their vision on it, because I've done my bit. I've done mine. I've brought it out. I've brought that into the world in that way, and then I feel I would feel happier giving it to someone else for the sort of like release 2. So yeah, that's kind of where I am in that. So yeah, we'll see. And the same, I guess, localizations is another thing where you might hand it over. That's something I've considered but not sort of pursued, because there's only so much time in the day, really. But I guess that's sort of an alternative where you look after your domestic market and someone else does all the localizations for you. But that's something I'd consider too.
And Alex has, oh, Andy appears to be back. You seem to go and then come back. But Alex asks, would you hand it over to a developer? It sounds like you would be comfortable now having stuff changed about assembly and tweaked and modified.
Yeah. So at this point, I've made my game. I've made my perfect game for me. And yeah, I'd hand it over to someone else, and if they wanted to sort of like retheme it and then republish it under a license, then that would be a cool thing to do. And similarly, the first game I ever developed, I think I just came with the Maiden Voyage. I came to a block on that, and I think the only way to push that game forward would actually be as a collaboration. Is kind of where I got to, and that is that I needed, because of its size. I'm much more comfortable designing the smaller games with the amount of time that I have. In a larger game, I think I'd need a collaboration for that one to actually work. Which is why I stick to games under 30 minutes. It's just I can get several playtest sessions.
And before we get to Andy, Alan, obviously also a self-publisher, says, Surprise Star Games tried a lot of pitching 20 years ago. We found it was very difficult to break through because most publishers were German companies and we were completely unknown. I don't know if the situation has changed a lot more, but I can definitely relate to the notion that if all you want to do is to get some number of your game produced, to get some number done and then send them to friends, like Andy was saying, any number, just having one person validate you, then for sure doing it yourself is the easier route. But Andy, did you even try to pitch?
No, but for the first game, Niche, that's the game I started for conductive education. So I was briefly saying I had brain surgery and I thought life's too short. I'm going to make a game, and I'll make it for a charity, because I genuinely thought all I want is to make a physical game, get it out there, and that's kind of like a pride thing. So there was an element of vanity publishing about it, and I mean, we've got to be honest. There's always going to be a little bit of vanity publishing about this. We want to make a game, so we're going to make a game, and hopefully people will buy it, and then it becomes more than just that. But so the first game, I didn't approach publishers because I just thought, well, I'm going to spend this money, and I still remember the conversation with my wife saying, look, I'm going to spend this money. We may never get this money back, but I will have made a game, and the charity will hopefully benefit from it. And I also brought out the same UK Games Expo. I also brought out Mindleaf, which arguably is one of my most critically acclaimed games. And Mindleaf won the award that weekend. After that, I got about 3 or 4 publishers approaching me to publish Mindleaf. And my experience with publishers has been sort of 3 publishers so far, really. So the first publisher, I'm not even going to name, because basically they really liked the idea that I paid. We went in halves, and I paid towards getting Mindleaf made. They took it to Essen. They sold a few hundred copies, and then they went bankrupt, and they decided they didn't want to give me any money. So I didn't get a penny piece, and I had to go back, and I had to go down to the warehouse and take stock back and all that sort of stuff. It was awful, awful. So, but they were not what I would call the usual publisher. Then Coiled Spring came along. They saw me playing a game that I called Number Wang. Obviously, I couldn't call it Number Wang, but they changed it to Dodeca, and they made Dodeca. And that was a fantastic experience and completely restored my faith in publishers. So, because up until that point, my experience was very much like a lot of people. You go to a publisher with a game and you say, I've got this great game. And they go, we're not making that kind of game right now. And we're sort of like, we're doing our own thing, or we've got something similar we're working on, and we don't want to look at yours because it might cloud the issue. And they're quite defensive. If they approach you, it's great. If you approach them, it is really like trying to batter down the door. So what I then decided to do was keep making games, make small print runs. Hopefully they will get a good response, and eventually publishers will start coming to me and saying, I've seen this, people have said nice things, I'd like to license it. And that's what happened with Mindleaf last year. XV Games made licensed that and made that, and that was a really good experience as well. So I'm back on track with publishers. I think they're nice people again, but I'm not in a situation where I am. Oh, actually, no. Dranda Games, Aidan Lowther told me about this. It's a really good technique, and I think I'm going to go down this road. I'm going to make games now. I'm going to go to a publisher and say, what sort of game are you looking for right now? They say what their brief is. I go away and make a game that I think will fit it. Go back to them and say, what do you think of this? Knowing that it's got half a chance. If they don't like it, I've still made a game that I think is good, and I can go on and do my own thing with it. So there's that. And the other thing is,
I know that Matthew Dunstan and Turksey swear by this method of checking in with people, asking what they want. And I agree with Alan, who said Mindleaf is a great game, and Jay Foolsguard saying, it seems hard to get through with pitching. I have started to toy with the idea of making a small game and kickstart it and see what I learn from that. And that learning, but it seems like originally we all wanted, and by the way, Alan Paul says, by the way, Alan Paul would like more small games for my Pockets campaign series.
Right, I'll write it down now.
I want to ask this question because we all chose to stay away from self-publishing for whatever reason. Do you think they are intrinsically an expression of self? And do you think that that expression of self is diluted by licensing it to publishers? And are we trying to say something, whether that be something grand about the world or just kind of say something about who we are? Like with In a Bind, yes, the fact that the original version does have my artwork, it means something to me. The fact that there's, I'm trying to remember, 3,000 copies that were printed, and out there's some people who sometimes say, I've still got the original old school In a Bind. And I really appreciate what Jigamic did with Yogi, and I want to say publicly that I genuinely believe that Yogi is now the better version, now that Yogi Guru is also out. Get both of them. That's got the wild cards. Mix them together. That is the ultimate experience. It's plastic cards. You can even play in the rain, or if a drink spills. Yeah. I talked about swimming pools every time I mention it, so I thought I was trying to go for something different. But I guess people might be watching this episode but not have heard me say that before. But the point is that yes, there is something about that first version that even if there were mistakes that I made, even if nowadays I wouldn't do the tuck box anymore, that's a reflection of myself. Like the fact that the little fold, it kind of has the same picture as on top of the box. The fact that there's a secret code in the barcode. Like if you look at it and you look at the numbers correctly, there's a little secret message. It's not very exciting secret message, but it's there. And the fact that the words are from me. Like when on the back it says perfect for what is it, like stag do, hen do, meeting strangers in the park on a sunny day. And what publisher is going to say that? It kind of feels like a communication from me to you, and I feel proud of that. Do you feel, Andy and then Janice, that games are intrinsically can be a personal statement with real authorial intent?
I think if you are self-publishing, you can't help but put your own personality into the game. You're guaranteed to do that. And we were talking earlier about the idea of freedom and the yes, of course, if you're making your own game. I mean, in Disgrace and Favours, there's quite a few friends of mine whose names are in there, and I was able to do there's one in there that's of a friend who's passed away now, and I put them in. And I said, look, I can't help you with what you're going through because what they have is terminal. I said, but I can put you in my game. And they were delighted. They said that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And in fact, every time I play that game, there's a very deep personal moment when I see that card because it reminds me of that person. So that's brilliant, and being able to do that and have that permanently in the world is great. But when it comes to publishers, if a publisher comes to make my game, I always make no bones about it. It's their money. They're going to be putting in the vast majority of the effort. So I don't really, as long as I'm not embarrassed by what they do, or if it's going to bring my name into disrepute, then it really is their decision to do whatever they want to do. I've got no problem with that,
Of course, I mean, none of this should imply that we are, people who are hell-bent on control freaks. The fact that we get this control with some things, means that sometimes we're willing to give it up in other places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, I wouldn't find in a swimming pool, because what if you put your head lower than somebody's knee? The drowning incidents would just be ridiculous.
You have to make sure you do it with scuba gear on. There you go, sorted.
Hold this card on the bottom of the pool.
Yeah.
Janice, self-expression.
I think for me, my biggest reason for wanting to do assembly myself first was the fear, I guess, of someone dumbing it down too much. I wanted to create something that was relatively simple to play, but it had complexity and depth to it too. And that complexity and depth means that it moves the game from its apparent appearance to being sort of, I don't know, just like what could potentially be mass market, but or a little bit above, to being like the game you play after you started gaming, not your entry point. It's the next level up. But I just think that lots of people out there who are gamers are busy, and they don't have time for necessarily all the time for hour, 2 hour, 3 hour games. And I want something where it scratches that itch that you can have something with that little bit of added complexity, but that plays in less than half an hour. And most games that play in less than half an hour don't have that in there. And so that was kind of my big concern. If it goes to a publisher that was going to remove most of that sort of additional layer of complexity to make it into more of a mass market game. But now I've made that, I'm happy. I've done that. Someone can go and make it into a mass market game, because the more people that play games, and makes them happy, the better, because ultimately a game is to make someone happy. But so yeah, that was kind of like, why do I do it? Because I can have that control to start with. Now I've done that, I'm happy to give it up, kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely got self-expression. And like Andy, every one of our games has our kids' names as a role, so you'll find those in there, and other things that were meaningful at the time. So it had like our eldest name of their favorite cuddly toy or their best friend or something in there as well. So when you play it, and obviously they're the best roles, so if you can work out our kids' names, you know what are the best roles in the box. So that's also another nice thing. And then I always put like little Easter eggs in, put a code in both assembly and Sensor Ghost, so that you decode. I don't tell anyone that's there until sort of, I don't know, six months or so after release. and you can then find this code and follow this puzzle to work it out to get to a secret part of the website. So that's just like a little bit of extra fun in there as well, which you can't do with a sort of a publisher, but it's a nice little extra that you can add when you self-publish.
It depends on the publisher, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
one of the reasons that Tiz Creel and I went with Inside the Box for Seize the Power. So in case I've not talked about it well, I don't know if you two are aware of this. This is a game about discrimination and subjugation of power. And it's a game for, it's been too long since I played this. It's best with 4 to 6 players, but we were trying to work out how to expand that player count. Anyway, everyone is on purpose very imbalanced. So there's Am, who's got more money, more education, and there's rules in the game that you get these rules during the game. You actually control the rules of the game, if you know what I mean. But then if someone wants to look the other way, and that's the key thing, that's like where the game started. I'm proud of what it is, and it's actually trying to say something. And Tiz had a lot of aspirations regarding, getting it into education. And that's something that Peter was willing to agree with. And knowing Peter on a personal level, I know that Peter's values are very closely aligned with ours in terms of, let's say, a little bit left-leaning in terms of wanting to try and bring a message of we should have more equality and we should have more fairness in the world and opportunities for people, and let's not shy away from discussing that. And yes, this is a thing that I've still not published. I will definitely self-publish this one day. I'm not going to read out the title because it takes me about 10 minutes to do so. But yeah, this might not have been the right decision, but I was kind of, not by the biggest company, but by a biggish company that said someone was saying, I could get you in touch. They will probably be interested, but they won't do drawings for all of these cards. Obviously, they won't have the crazy name, but, we'll just call it Blether or something like that, and we'll have just words on the cards and nothing else. And for me, having like 550 bits of artwork, even though I've made an albatross for my own neck, what's the phrase there? It feels... I
think it's a millstone for you, Nick.
Thank you. Where does the albatross go? Is that on your back?
I think albatross is to do with bad luck, isn't it? I'm not sure.
But anyway, maybe I've made a millstone for my own neck, but I feel like that's the sheer amount of artwork in that game is kind of part of the ridiculous nature of it. And yeah, Alan says larger publishers are wary of games with a message because of the risk of some of the potential audience might be offended. And yeah, that's why you have to be wary of who you're working with. Like, I have a game that Alan Paul might hopefully publish one day. When we were going to change it completely, Alan basically had this input from another publisher that Alan was working with, and I was like, you know what, that might actually work. That might even make it even better. And then we were going to sit together and we were going to get together in April. And Alan says, yes, I will. And there we go, commitment. And hello, Yoda, it's lovely to see you. But the point is, with a small publisher, you've got this willingness to do these things. But with you, yeah, it's all about what are you seeking. Do you have anything else to say about the whole notion of expression before we move on from that?
Well, I think you're right about the small publishers. I think there are small publishers out there who recognise the value to the Easter eggs and things like that, and they recognise that there is actually. I mean, I'm not saying publishers are all the money, but the designer's the one who has made this little baby of a game, and they're invested in seeing that game happen. The publishers, they have to look at the bottom line. They have to look at whether or not they're going to actually make money, because they're basically going to invest in an idea and they need to see that investment. Their baby, if you like, is the investment, and they need to see that grow, and then they need to see that come back. Otherwise, really, why are they doing it? Why don't they make their own game and have their own creative process and get the sense of achievement from that? So it's not a case of designers only need a sense of achievement and they don't need any money, by the way. The designers definitely need to have some profit from what they do, but publishers are more driven by the concept of, will this be a good idea marketing wise, financially, and that sort of thing. So, but Easter eggs can be, you know, those little moments can be, and when I mean, it's in Agricola. You know, you look at some of the rooms in Agricola, and they've got some of the games by the same publisher on the tables. So that's fun.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just a lovely thing with all the Uwe Rosenberg little Easter eggs. And I remember Peter Blenkhorn, ITB, before Cryptex, being really excited, saying, oh my gosh, I've just realized how many places could you kind of put in secret messages into a box. I want to make a puzzle game. And then people aren't going to realize that it has all these extra puzzles, you know, exactly like you're talking about, Janice, but Peter was just talking about how far it could be pushed, and like just talking about like potentially on the card back, and I don't know how many of those ideas actually panned out or will ever pan out. But I think, yeah, you look at a publisher and you see, yes, you've got to think about the bottom line 100%, but where's the balance? Are we having an aligned singular vision? Are we bringing this thing to light, or are we just trying to maximize revenue? Like, and where's the balance? That's the thing.
Well, the question is, I suppose, what Janice is talking about, I think, is she's put those Easter eggs in because they were personal, and they were very personal to her. And I like to think the ones I put in are personal to me. Whereas if you were a publisher saying, let's see how many, I'm nothing against Peter, but let's see how many we can squeeze in, then that becomes more of a marketing
feature.
exercise. And it becomes,
mine was just like a little extra bonus for the people that looked closely. And it was like almost like a thank you for buying their games, and here's a little bonus puzzle for you to solve as a thank you kind of thing to pass another hour of your time. So you've got the game that you can play multiple times, and then you've got this once only 1 hour puzzle that you can solve too. And it's just like a bonus thank you in the box, which is not something that I wanted to market sort of hugely, because it wasn't a selling point. It was something to find as a nice little bonus. So we've sort of mentioned hints and that's to it, but that's about it. And yeah, that was my sort of motivation for putting it in. But yeah, I agree. I think if you are filling a box with it, then it's no different really to an exit game, which has sometimes, I think, I'm sure one of them has used the box as part of the puzzle, for example. But yeah, I think Chip Theory Games does it quite well. They do nice little mini puzzles in their games, which they don't market necessarily as being there. But when you find it, it's like, again, it's this little thank you to the people that have bought their games as a little bonus for them for solving the puzzle and supporting them. And that's where I see it is. It's a thank you. It's not marketing.
It's more love than selling.
Yeah, and it's fun to create as well. Yeah, so it's a nice little fun thing for me to create, and something that hopefully provide an hour or so is fun for someone else to decrypt and solve.
And I agree with Alan Paul here, who says maybe it's more art than product, because it's... Yeah, I'm not saying that a group effort is somehow inferior, but it's impossible to deny that when you are the person writing these rules, when you are the person giving the play examples, when you are the person naming all these things, it's going to be like the person who's played that game gets to know a little bit about you and what your values are and what you represent and maybe who the people are in your life. There's definitely something to say about that.
Every single every single person, every single voice you add to any process, involves compromise. And that's, you know, the artist on their own, whoever they may be, the creative spark on their own is always going to be uninhibited. They're going to be an uncompromising vision, aren't they? And so the more it's that balance of when you add another person, are you going to raise that thing to a higher level, make it better than the first person was going to make it? And at what point do too many cooks spoil the broth, sort of thing? At what point does adding another voice become a problem? If we had 12 people on Zoom, then we'd all be compromising left, right, and centre, and there would be very little creativity.
Actually, I just want to acknowledge that Alex apparently tells us that an albatross round one's neck is a problem you can't escape. So it was a sailor's punishment for shooting an albatross, and it's meant to, as you said, represent bad luck, because apparently it's bad. Whereas I guess a millstone, that's something that I'm going to have to look up afterwards. Presumably a millstone, you can wind it down and then you're done with the millstone around your neck.
The millstone, it's a heavy weight, just a heavy weight that you carry. If you choose to.
But one day you can give up the millstone.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's glued on. I'm not sure.
Anyway, we've got a question. Do you use Kickstarter in your self-publishing? People will know I do. Andy, you have done.
I've done it once. And the question is, now I've done that horrible learning curve, would I do it again? And I don't know what the answer is. It's a fascinating. I definitely wanted to do it, very much like you were saying.
It took you a decade to get there, right?
Yeah, and I could have done it before that, but I am not that kind of. I didn't take to it easily. I needed somebody to hold my hand through the process. Thank you, Nate Brett. And but I still didn't do I didn't follow all of the rules you have to do. I didn't get the massive mailing list. I didn't do all the marketing properly. I managed to scrape over the 100% line just about, and I have made a game that's far better than any game, components wise and size wise, than I've ever made before. So it's, in that respect, the final product was definitely worth the effort. But I'm the sort of person that if you come to me at a show and you say to me, I want to buy one of your games, let me give you the money and I'll pick it up later, I will say, no, pick it up later and then give me the money. And Kickstarter was very much here's our money, now carry that millstone of responsibility for the next few months, and feel guilty and have sleepless nights where you're thinking, God, can I actually do this? So it was. I'm not sure I can cope. My nerves can cope with the concept of people giving me lots of money and then me going and making the product. I think I'd rather do the other way around.
Right. So yeah, I used Kickstarter twice, and we've got our third campaign launching 2 weeks on Wednesday. My background is in project management, so that I guess sort of Andy's sleepless nights was my day job for kind of like a number of years. So it was like kind of comes naturally to me. It's just like run of the mill that you agree to deliver a certain thing, and then you go off and you deliver it within the agreed time frame and agreed budget and everything else. And so for me that didn't sort of worry me, because I knew I could do it. I'd done it for years before, much larger, much higher risk projects and products. And so for me, this was like, from the project management and the delivery side, it was actually relatively simple. And I already had the game design. I also didn't follow any of the marketing rules for my first Kickstarter, but it seemed to didn't matter. It seemed to take off quite well. So yeah, I do things, I think, sometimes slightly unconventionally. I've tried to follow some of the rules this time around, mainly about consistency, which is why Antoinette's doing the social media posts this time, because my consistency for posting on social media is absolutely appalling. It's like I'll post something when I've got something interesting to say and it's exciting. Otherwise, I just can't push myself to do it. And so I understood that. I know that I can't do that. So I've got someone else who was happy to do that for me. So that was kind of my biggest learning curve between the theories, working out. I know that for the social media algorithms, you have to have consistency, and that's where I fall down. I hate having to do consistency on social media. I'll post something when I got something exciting to say, and then I'll leave it be, kind of thing. So that's kind of my difference. But yeah, in terms of like building up a marketing list and all of that sort of things, I don't think it's about number. It's about quality. So they're saying you have to have 1,000 people on your list. No, you don't. You have to have a certain number of quality on your list. If you've got 10,000 people on your list, but only 1% open them, and you have 1,000 people on your list, but 50% open them, then that's what matters. It's how engaged your audience is, not how big it is on paper. And so that to me is absolutely what you need to do. I think it's focused over quality over than quantity, and that's kind of where I am. I'd rather engage a smaller number of people that are really enthusiastic than just try and get a huge audience. And similarly, just like with like previews and stuff, like, so you should just send it to 3 or 4 of them. You know what? I like supporting content creators and the smaller content creators, the newer ones, and they should get a chance at doing Kickstarter games too. And so, you know what? I'd rather print a few extra copies at my expense and send them to the smaller content creators and give them a chance as well, because you never know, in 3 years' time, they might be 3, 4, 5, they might be one of the big ones. And maybe I've helped them get there, maybe I haven't, but I want to share success. I don't want it to be just my success. I want to share it, and they help me, I help them, we work together, we work as a team, and we get there. And yeah, I mean, it's just like, I've been like following all the rules of Facebook ads recently, and it's absolutely appalling, my results. But when I do my gut attempt, it works out brilliantly. And so yeah, I said I prefer the unconventional approach and trust my gut rather than follow the rules. Sorry?
Because you're more, is that because you're more committed, because it's your way, you're more committed, and therefore you're putting the quality into the way you want to do something because it's the way you want to do it. And possibly. Then maybe if you're having to tick boxes and do it somebody else's way, you're just doing the
I just can't stand doing it. Yeah, it becomes no longer genuine, I guess. And so yeah, I sort of like, I try to keep my newsletters like personal and sort of chatty rather than marketing. What I want to do is inform and share my excitement, not to say you need to go and buy this game. And that is kind of that's the approach I take, is that come and share my excitement. And help me along on this journey. Don't just come and support this and make this a reality. It's about come and help me and support me in my excitement, and hopefully you'll be excited too.
I think the word you used there, the word genuine, is something that people were starving for on Kickstarter, and that's because I know I did it wrong. But I got a lot of people saying to me, "Oh, this I knew I did it wrong," because people said to me, "Oh, this is a refreshing way of doing it. I like what you're doing with your updates and all this sort of stuff." And I thought that must mean if this is refreshing, that's another word for you're doing it wrong. So no,
I think refreshing means that
different.
It's different, and I think and different is good. I think different is good. Absolutely. I think if everyone follows the same mold, it's boring. So yeah,
I'm
so just like my games.
From you, Andy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that bit?
I said I'm just hearing lots of self-doubt from you.
Yeah. if it works, it works, and I think it's brave to experiment, and I think everyone should be experiment. I think it will get better and will improve the hobby and our knowledge and wisdom by people being willing to experiment and try something new and different and do it in a different way. Because then maybe that will become the norm.
I think if you don't have sleepless nights over Kickstarters, Janice, maybe I should stay in touch for my next one and ask you to do it for me.
I'll let you into a secret. I hate running Kickstarter campaigns.
Alan says genuine is better than professional.
Yeah.
And G Fool's Guard says, yeah, it doesn't sound like you did it wrong.
Okay, I've got about 2 more minutes, and I have a play date starting with my daughter.
Okay.
The life of a mum as a self-publisher. But yeah, I was going to say the other thing, I'm just sort of slightly linking back also to the pitching thing, is the games that I design don't fit into a standard niche that exists. So it's the fact that they are slightly complex puzzle short games for 1 to 2 players, or they do go up higher, but they prioritize a lower player count. Can you tell me a publisher that does that as part of their routine? They don't. So I could go and pitch them, but it just doesn't fit into their catalogue. So I'm having to not only persuade them that my game's good, but to change their catalogue and the way they do things. And so that's also, that genuine thing is I have that freedom, and it means like we have that freedom to do something different that you can't necessarily do with the publisher. And yeah, so that was the sort of just linking things back into being genuine, being yourself, being innovative. You're allowed to do that as a self-publisher. It's so much harder to do that as a license. But
Janice, thank you very much for coming on. Hopefully we can have you on in 4 weeks again to talk a bit more about other aspects of self-publishing. One thing
mid-campaign.
Pardon?
I'll be mid-campaign in 4 weeks. That's terrifying. I haven't even done the video yet. I always do that. I always do that the weekend before as a mad panic rush.
One thing I wanted to ask before you leave, if you are able to, is are there any surprises, and do your initial motivations still hold true? Is there anything else you want to say before you skedaddle?
No, other than I guess the next game is actually something that's really close to my heart. It's based on a game I used to play with my nan that I've hopefully brought into the 21st century. So the next game is a little bit different. It's based on something that is much more personal to me, which actually makes it much more scary in general, I think, because it means a lot more. But yeah, that's probably about it. And
if you want to check out Janice, then of course you can go to rengames.co.uk, twitter.com/Dravin, Dravvin. No idea where that comes from. Right.
It was a name in a book when I was younger, in my teens that I read. I liked it and I've used it ever since.
And we've got twitter.com/rengames, instagram.com/rengames, and facebook.com/rengames. Very consistent. WRENGAMES. And yeah, have fun with your play date.
I will. We're planting vegetables. Right. Thank you, everyone, and see you in 4 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, yeah, Andy. Oh, and bye from Alex to Janice. We've talked about Kickstarter and doing things a wee bit differently. I did want to kind of say that within a bind, I was thinking, okay, why not use Kickstarter? Why not get the money? Because it helps you. It helps you see how many copies to print. Do you know what I mean? It helps you see, do you want to do this many? Do you want to do a different number? Or let's be honest, a lot of the times for me, it's, am I going to do 1,000 or not? Although then in a bind, I did 1,000 and I sold out quite quickly. So I ended up printing 2 more thousands within 6 months, which was amazing because, you know, it's honestly, it's an incredibly easy game to sell. You see it, you can tell what's going on within a fraction of a second, pretty much. You're like, okay, it's about contortion. People are laughing. People are having a good time. I want in on that. And I can teach it within less than 30 seconds. But probably less if I wrote.
Did you say that? Did you say less than 30 seconds? Because once I did all of the rules for Mindleaf in 29.8 seconds, and I told you that. I said, I'm not sure anybody else can do their game with that fast. I did it in one breath, and yes, I got a rule wrong. But then you said, well, pick up a card, turn it over, do what it says. I'm like, okay, fine. You win. You can teach your game in about 3 or 4 seconds. 5 if with examples, I would imagine. So
I mean, I do need to say that you need to keep doing everything, and then when it gets to your turn, pick up an object. Your game, you can teach it in 30 seconds and people might be confused. I can teach my game in 30 seconds and people will understand innately.
You can play your game in 30 seconds.
Nah, that's a bit stretching it. But
you could. I could pick a card up, stick it over my eyebrow, drop it. Oh, you win.
if you were very bad at it, sure, you could.
I love your game.
But
it's brilliant.
thank you very much. And I honestly very much appreciate your support. Like, I will never forget, like, Andy Hopwood, one of the original supporters, and had not gone on to Kickstarter ever before. Went on to Kickstarter just for my game. That's one of my claims to fame.
I did. It was painful, but I did it.
I'm very proud of that. And so I was in this kind of, why not use Kickstarter? It allows you to get money. It helps with cash flow if that's something that you need. And it tells you how many copies to print. But I totally get where you're coming from with that. It is pressure. And when I did Kitty Cataclysm, there was at least one person who said, oh, I've never backed a Kickstarter where it wasn't already before. I'm excited to see how this goes through the process. And so, yeah, I was quite open with, you know, the art that I showed. It was stuff that I'd taken maybe a couple of hours to draw literally the entire deck. I thought it was well drawn, like it gave an idea of what I was going for, but then obviously the final stuff where I'm spending more than that amount of time on each card, I'm able to put it in color. I'm able to, you know, I'm proud of how the final thing looks. Oh, there's a copy of Kitty Cataclysm version 2, which is it's hand-done. So some of the cards have little Stettler limo color changes. I'm actually looking for one of the edits.
But wouldn't you say that
there you go. That's one of the cards that's going to change. I've decided that's worth 2 Meowny, not 3. That will change for next printing.
Wouldn't you say though that Kickstarter, that's what Kickstarter wants to be? That's what they originally said that they were. That's what they claimed they want to be. I don't know if it's really what they want to be. I don't know. But they still carry that.
They carry it, but they have had Kickstarters for things that have not even been designed, not even had all the art done, but have been literally mass produced.
See, I was wondering, because my model always used to be make 100 copies of a game, and obviously economies of scale are terrible there. You're paying a fortune for those. But then if you sell 80 or 90 copies of those games, you should pay for the production run, so you haven't lost money. And then you've got 10 nice copies of a game to send out to publishers in the hope that one of them might want to license it. So, and it's also out there in the public domain. You've got 100 witnesses to the fact that you made a game, and people can't then go and pinch it. And it's also, in itself, it's market research. Because if you make 100 copies of a game and it sells in a weekend, then you know, you can say to publishers, this is hot stuff, you're gonna, you know, this is worth doing, or even do 3,000 yourself after that. But I find that,
but selling, you know, selling 90 copies at a convention isn't trivial. I'm not saying it's difficult, but it's not trivial. Do you know what I mean? And Alan Paul says, I found it really hard learning curve to do Kickstarter. And Alex says, adding to what you're saying, it's also free playtesting. Like, honestly, like the fact that I sent a copy to Antoinette Mason, and Antoinette said, oh, 2 of the cards seems like they might be a bit wrong. And then Antoinette kind of came back with me with 2 of the cards. And I was like, And then I had a big discussion with David Brain, and we were thinking, And, you know, it's that kind of high randomness game where it's more valuable to just ponder it than actually play it. I know that sounds really backwards, but genuinely, once you've played it 20 times, it's like, what's the chance of this card appearing? You can kind of just mathematically think about, okay, should this card be worth 2 or 3? And then we decided, yes, even though a card might be slightly overpowered at 3, we want to have a slightly overpowered card in there because we want it to be an exciting game, and we want there to be the feeling of chance. But this other card doesn't really need to be free. Let's lower that to 2. And I kind of spent an afternoon, and I think there's like 6 cards that have changed in the end. But
I struggle. I've got to be honest, when it comes to games design, I struggle with those kinds of level of that level of subtlety. I struggle to summon up the energy to worry about it. The way I see it is that I play a game. I usually play test a game. I think play testing a game 100 times is not quite enough, but you've got to do it at least 100 times before you can tell. If you've played a game 100 times, you usually have seen those problems occur. And when I watch players, and if somebody goes, oh, if one card is always used, if one card is always played because it's overpowered, at that point I go, hang on just a minute, this is affecting the whole game. I'm going to change that. But if it's something that I don't think I would sit down and mathematically pinpoint every. Gregory Castle would tell me off right now, but I wouldn't mathematically pinpoint every problem and solve it. I would see if it disrupts any of the 100 games.
I think Gregory is a fine person. Gregory understands people have different routes to solving problems, but I think that this kind of notion of you need to play test 100 times is kind of slightly overstated. And I feel like, you know, there's a lots of toy games like the doggy poop style thing, where those might get play tested 0 times because the thing is, like, the whole point is just, does this make you laugh? Does it make you smile? And that's it. Honestly, in a bind, the actual core deck of that, I don't. This is. Look, I play tested it in the early versions a lot, don't get me wrong. I went for a long journey to get to that simplicity of rules. I started off with an overcomplicated mess, and then it became a chaotic overcomplicated mess, and the chaotic overcomplicated mess was really fun. People were having to sing songs and run around the table and spin round and do sit-ups. It was a bit too much for most people, though. And then made it simpler, and then took it to convention. I was like, just hey, people are actually enjoying it. And then at that point, it was more, okay, now I just need to, it's kind of playtesting, like I'm getting information, but it's really just promotional. And then after the Kickstarter, I did what I would call development. And the development took about a couple of hours of me on my own, trying to do all the cards at once, making sure that, and I had a thought, should there be an impossible combo in the game where clearly 2 cards that contradict one another, that's right out? Should it be possible with 3 cards? And I was thinking, okay, what if I want to make sure that there's no 3 card combos, but 4 card combos are all right? Since I realized by the point that I'm saying that a 4 card combo is okay, you might as well just say that the entire deck can, in theory, be done together. And that was my development. Because frankly, I don't mind that there's one eye closed is, for a lot of people, a lot easier than hand on a knee. And out of that original deck, in that design, there's 2 cards that's, how many years has it been? More than 5 years later. There's 2 cards that I'm kind of unhappy with. One of them was changed for Yogi, which was right hand, right of right elbow, which, yeah, maybe I should have done more playtesting, but hey-ho, it's still it's not enough to ruin the game, do you know what I mean? That's the point. But, like, yes, if you've got a strategic game, if you've got something yeah, a good game is different from a good product, says Jay Foolsguard. But no, like, the doggy poop game, like, that might be, you might be saying, oh, that's a good product, that's not a good game. But, like, look at In a Bind, the fact that I'm saying, like, the final version of that, and yes, I am deliberately ignoring all the initial design, but the final balancing, if I can call it that, was 2 hours of me on my own. There wasn't actually any playing of the game involved in the balancing of the game.
No, but a good design, like I was saying before, before I made my first game, I made 99 failures. In doing those 99 failures, you are preparing the way for reducing the amount of time it takes you to make a game. There are now I'm at the point, whereas in the past I always used to say, whatever I come up with, whatever crazy nonsense comes out of my head, I'm going to prototype it, I'm going to play it. I used to do that with everything. Now I will go, okay, here's a game, and I go through it in my mind, and I say to myself, do you know what? Because of that, this thing that I'm thinking of right now, that's not going to work. And I can veto and destroy games before I get to that, even get to the prototyping stage. So
because your artist, your kind of creative self is able to come up with more ideas, and you're not as scared of throwing most of them away.
Yeah. So I mean, say 10,000 hours, isn't it? There's that old thing about 10,000 hours. If you do something that long, you get good at it. I've thought about games for far more than 10,000. I mean, I've always said that for me, I realised I'd gone too far when I saw a picture of a trout on a wall, and I thought, can I make a game out of that? And I thought, stop. I had to stop myself interpreting everything as, could it be a game? And I think I'm fine. I'm getting better now at focusing. Very recently, because there's this game I'm trying to make for a publisher. It's not a promise game. It's not. They're not saying make this game, we'll pay you. It's kind of like, this is what we're looking for, and I'm aiming towards a target now. I feel that's focused me, whereas before I just used to anything that came out of my head just went down on paper, and I went my own way. And that's definitely something, if somebody's getting into games design, definitely make every game you can possibly imagine, because you will learn so much in that process. One of the games I made was a Christmas bauble game. It was so bad. It was so bad. It really was. That was one of the first ones I ever play tested with a stranger. And that taught me lots. You learn more from a failure than you do from a success sometimes, don't you? So just suck it and see.
And I'm not really wanting to get into a discussion of what's a good game, what's a good product, where Jay Folsgaard says In a Bind might have been a good game, but maybe not a good product. We could have a discussion about what distinguishes the two, but yeah, I don't know.
It is easier to pinpoint a good product. It's easier to say something is a good product, i.e., how long will the components last? How robust are they? There's some fundamental stuff on good product.
All my point is that with testing, you need to make sure that the game is fit for purpose. Because if a game is about expressing yourself, 100 playtests doesn't tell you that. You need to have some empathy, some awareness of how humans work. I mean, playtesting a role-playing game, it's a completely different beast. And playtesting something like In a Bind or Yogi or it's like where the joy is of the kinesthetic appeal. Do you know what I mean? It's about moving yourself. It's just, is this a fun thing to do? It doesn't really matter if there's an ideal strategy, or frankly, with the Fast and Furious, that I originally thought was going to be just, hey, here's a simplified version of the game, but now this is like the main game, and Slow and Sadistic is like, oh, if you want. But yeah, honestly, like the strategy in that game, I'm not going to say there aren't decisions. I've seen people doing terrible decisions in that game where I'm thinking, really? You're using two hands to touch your ear and your nose, and you're trying to draw a card when you could just do that. You've got big enough hands to touch your ear and your nose at one time. But, then people, oh, wait a minute, I could, and then they were, but, with an actual strategic game, of course you need that strategy. Playtesting Tolkien, playtesting Energy Empire, or whatever, is going to be a completely different beast. Playtesting Mindleaf, you've got to make sure that, an abstract strategy game, that's such an important thing, because that lives and dies on the strategy. The self-expression in that game is just expressing yourself through the strategies you choose. And
oh yeah, I mean, you could say that In a Bind, and there's many. Okay, so In a Bind probably falls into that category of, the fundamental spark. What is the fundamental spark of that game? And you can see that instantly from just a few cards. And you can also see that if somebody gets all the hardest cards to do, then all you're going to end up with is that's just funny. Nobody's betting in. Nobody's going to lose a kidney playing in a bind. It's not like life or death.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want anyone to be betting their kidneys. Please don't. I do not condone betting your parts of your body on results.
To be fair, you've got most people have got two. So
no, I still don't condone it.
Neither do I. Neither do I. So
Thank you.
Yes. But what I'm saying is, you can see that the play testing of in a bind is this going to be good? It basically, play testing, if you like, is exposing your game to strangers and seeing what the effect is. And if the effect 99 times out of 100 is they love it, then it's fine. If the effect is 50 times out of 100 they love it and 50 times they're bored, then you've got a problem.
Maybe not. Maybe those 50 people are just, they only like strategic games, and you need to get better at choosing your playtesters.
You see, that's how you're saying it's the self-doubt thing with me, is that, and I like to think almost all of my games, well, I'm going to say all my games, stand up to reasonable scrutiny. It's because I am so cruel to my games design. I will shoot my games design down if 10 people out of 100 said I really don't like it. Maybe boredom is not your only point. That's never. I'd rather somebody hated my game than was bored by it. But
Andy, there's a question that Alan asked earlier on, which was, have you considered doing design and getting someone else to do the Kickstarter for you? It sounds like that's something you would be open to continuing.
100%. What I want to do. Somebody said to me, I think it was Kate from the UK Games Expo, and she said, "You are." She didn't use these words, but basically, you are a fruit tree. So like I'm like a tree dropping fruit, which is the games design. And what happens is, if I don't have a farmer or somebody to do the Kickstarter for me, or take a farmer comes along, takes the fruit and makes it into something else, makes it into a pie, whatever. So Kate was saying that you need a farmer, otherwise the fruit's going to drop off the tree. And she's so right. It lands on the floor. I don't do anything with most of it. It rots. And as I have forgotten more.
So you need a farmer, you need a person to pick up the fruit, you need someone to turn it into a lovely pie. And then in the end, to dish up the pie and to,
ultimately, my part of my problem has been that because I've self-published, I genuinely believe that because I did self-publishing instead of pitching, and this is something everybody needs to be thoughtful of. I'll go to a publisher and I'll say, I've got this great games design, would you be interested? And I think, I don't know because nobody's ever explicitly said it, but I think that what they've done is they've said to me, they've looked at me and they've gone, he publishes his own stuff. If it's that good, why doesn't he do it himself? Well, the reason I don't do all my games design myself is some of them require much better marketing than I can ever summon up. And B, why should I technically help out somebody who could be a competition? So it's I'm not aware if there's publishers a sense of competition against one another, but I'm like a minnow in the publishing world. So I'm no threat to anyone. And the reason I publish my games is because I want to get them out there, and not because I'm going to be as a publisher, I'm never going to be sparring with the big guys, ever. That's not going to happen. It's just literally the publishing element is something I felt I had to do. And it's also, when you've got a game design, you've got to, if I don't clear the decks, if I don't make that game, if I don't make it, once I've made a prototype and played it, I feel it's out of my head. At that point, if it's got any merit and it needs to be made, I will go ahead and make it. And there are elements of that process I enjoy and elements I hate. But then once it's in its box, once it's in its little plastic box and it's done like that, it's out of my head. And now I can think of the next game design. But between those two moments, there's about 10, 20 games that have fallen on the forest floor and have rotted away, and I've forgotten about them. And I find that's heartbreaking, because I just want a way of getting these games designs out as quickly as possible. So my dream is I sit in one room coming up with the games designs, and the farmers in the next room, and I just pass them through a little slot and they just go and do something with them. And I forget about them then.
No, I mean, yes, that would kind of... There's a lots of stuff that I would like to start doing with other people. And yeah, I would like to be more of a fruit tree for sure. Alan mentions, I'm thinking of redoing my first version of March of Progress, 1 copy, and just as a me thing, so very much art. Alan also says, the market is expanding. I don't see threats from others, simply opportunities for collaboration. And this brings me to my next question, and let's try and get through these somewhat quickly. How comfortable are we with involving others as decision makers in our projects? How comfortable? I really want to find if you're listening and you're like, hey, you know what? I would be up for doing a bit more work at £10 an hour, and I would be happy to be representing Bez on Twitter or social media and doing stuff with the LDEC. You know, that's something that Chris is kind of wanting to do a bit less of, but I need, you know, like marketing, that's so bloody important. And I don't have time and energy for all of this, like kind of sending out the emails and getting stuff done and thinking, okay, what's actually the best thing to do? I would love to have someone who grew up to be like eventually an equal partner and was invested enough to actually sometimes spend time thinking, hey, Bez, I've had this great idea for, you know, how some way that we can expand the reach of the LDEC and how we can get it into more places, or how we can get more school kids playing it, or how we can, you know, get more people having fun with it, or how we can make the next release, you know, 5% better. Here's like, you know, a crazy thing. Like, you know, I'm really like the next version with the achievement sheets and a quick start cards guide, and like, oh, here's an idea for how boxes should be laid out. It's definitely
you're right. It's that weird problem we have where birds of a feather flock together, and we tend to find ourselves talking more and more to people who are very similar to ourselves, you know, other designers and stuff like that, who have all the same problems as we do, which is marketing problems and stuff like that. So it's like there's probably loads of marketeers who are out there saying we need people we want to represent, and we want to get out there. And it's that's the issue. We need those are the farmers, or whatever we choose to call them. Those are the people who you need. And I'm just the same. I would. It'd be brilliant if I had somebody to collaborate with.
But then if there was someone involved and then they were starting to make design decisions about your game, or saying, hey, we need to cut these names from the rule sheet because I understand this is a friend, but this play example is superfluous, and it means that you're going to 4 pages where really you only need a 2-page rule book.
Well, Bez, that's when it comes down to compromise. That's what we were talking about earlier. Every extra voice is a compromise. And
yes, and the question is, how comfortable are you with that? Are you comfortable? Because you've said in the past, Andy Hopwood works badly with others.
I was hoping you might have forgotten that bit. That phrase did come to my mind. So I was working with two other designers, and it was when it comes to my designs, I'm reasonably headstrong. I do get that, and I tend to be. I tend to feel like I'm already being very critical of my designs, more than anybody else. And when somebody comes in and criticizes it, maybe sometimes I'm not as open to that as I should be. But at the same time, there comes a point when if you listen to every criticism, you would just end up with something very bland indeed. So you do need to have, you need to be healthy about it. You need to be open about it, and you need to be. I take every criticism from playtesters. Every single playtester that's ever criticised any of my games, I've taken that on board. Even if it was one criticism, I just ask myself, I need a cheerleader. I've got cheerleaders. I've got some great cheerleaders, but what I need is somebody who will. Do you know the problem I find is that I want to pay people for work they do, and you get into this chicken and the egg scenario where if I've got somebody doing marketing for me for a product that I don't know if it's going to sell, where am I going to find the money to pay that person? And I simply refuse to do it on a charitable basis or hey, this might come to something, because it's I understand, obviously I'm putting in the time and the work and the effort and the, if you like, the talent for design. And if you're going to have somebody similar to do your marketing for you, then yes, we're both in it together. But at the same time, you kind of feel like if you're the boss, if the designer is the boss and making the decisions, and if you want that power and that responsibility, you need to pay the person doing the marketing. Like you said, you would pay them by the hour. But if you don't have those funds available, then you have to do it yourself, and you end up doing a worse job than somebody who would be brilliant at it.
And the thing is, like, is this going to, as soon as you start, you have to be thinking, does this actually bring me back the money? Does this bring me back time? Like, you could even say, okay, let's swap trades. Like, maybe someone does marketing for you and you do something for them. Maybe you organize. No, I was organizing a doll's house convention is a bit much.
Pretty niche.
But you know what I mean. Like, whatever kind, whether you're trading money or whatever, you've got to be thinking, is this worth it? And that's what it comes down to with us. Like, even if we're doing it ourselves, Alan says you could share on some form of royalty basis. This would be my kind of ideal situation, but then someone needs to be getting something, because otherwise you get into a situation where are they going to have the time to commit? Because otherwise they're going to have to prioritize things that are actually going to pay them that month. And I totally understand that.
Yeah. And when you're designing the game, when you're the instigator, you're driven to finish the project, because then you'll receive the rewards. Somebody working with you who comes to the party late, they're not necessarily as invested in the process, and therefore they need to know that they're getting something back, like you say, straight away for the effort they're putting in. And a royalty, when I was looking at artists, I paid Lloyd everything. We sorted everything out. He's fully paid up. There's no commission at all on Daring Dust Bunnies. I just think if it's on a commission basis and somebody puts in all that time and effort to create something, to do the artwork or do the marketing or stuff like that, and then you don't make the game, or the game falls flat, and there's no royalties because there's no sales. I think that's ideally why you want a mixture of advance and royalties. So I'm just going to say up front that what I've decided to do for couple
and categorical, and what I'll probably do for all games going forward is that it's going to be, well, all the LDEC is that it's 10% royalties for people responsible for arts and graphic design. So if that splits across multiple people, we'll split it. If it's someone like, you know, if Miles ends up doing literally, well, Miles is going to do the entire typeface, but if Miles also does the suits and the box and everything, then okay. Miles has already been paid some amount of money, and Miles is going to be paid, you know, some amounts afterwards, so there'll be like a couple of £100 there, and then later on it'll be a case of you get 10% of everything that's sold, with that initial payment being an advance. That seems fair to me, because it is an opportunity for someone to bring in their stamp, to self-express, to have all those joys, where I'm saying, yeah, I understand there are requirements. I understand that I am kind of imposing something on you, but within this, you know, you can do whatever you want. I'm going to make some suggestions, but I am committed to having a foresty, tree-like looking LDEC, and that's going to be the third typeface after the original and then the categorical one. And same with Tom Cauldron with Categorical, where that's a bleeping amazing game. I honestly believe that Categorical right now is, out of everything that's right now, my favorite games for it are the ones that I can play with one player, which is kind of sad, but because that's the world we live in, where people don't want to come over and play games in the garden, and in the garden, you know, things blow, and we're not meant to play games in the house, and people who live in the house with me maybe don't want to play games, and so yeah, maybe I'll play some solo game occasionally. I actually was thinking I might have a go at Friday again later today, but like I might play usable or quintuple or something, see how I get on with that. But yeah, anyway, back to Categorical. That's an amazing design. Tom Cauldron did that, and we decided some sort of regular advance and royalty system, and it's a very favorable royalty. Like 10% is quite a bit, but I'm just aware that firstly, I'm unlikely to actually sell that many, and B, I want the people to be invested. You know what I mean? It's easier on the maths. I'm not going to lie, that is a slight.
Easier on the maths. If you have somebody you get on with and you are upfront with them and you say, I will share with you how this thing is going, then I don't see why, and they agree to everything, then I don't see why there should ever be a problem. But
like, frankly, if someone wanted to say, hey, Bez, I would like you to do the artwork of my game, I am open to that. I've been saying that for years. I am open to doing art for other people's games.
I'll bear that in mind.
And on this kind of, but I want it to be within, you know, a style that I'm comfortable doing, if you know what I mean. Obviously, if you ask me to do photorealism, it's like, have you even seen what I've made? But you know what? You've got Kitty Cataclysm, right?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I've got several copies of In a Bind, but I think I bought 4 copies. No, I bought 6 copies originally, so I could give some to friends. But no.
Anyway, the point is that, yeah, I agree with Alex. This whole, but when for the actual question, because I feel like I should push this along a wee bit, because both of us are very rambly people, and we could chat for like 3 hours. But it feels like both of us are not only comfortable, but craving to have someone else involved, because there's so much of the things that we don't want to do, but also that other person has to complement what we do want to do. And people have to be, firstly, wanting to work on the same project together. So you have to be similar enough in that way, but you have to be different enough that your skill set is slightly different.
Spot on. That's absolutely spot on. I would also say it isn't just designer sets the tone sort of thing and then tries to find somebody. It is a case that I know full well, and yes, it has been the accusation that I don't work well with others has been leveled at me in a nice way. I have to say, they said it to my face. You know, it wasn't like this is not some unpleasant thing round behind my back, but it's kind of like when I know what I want, I really do know what I want. And it's like, then I don't want to be. When I know something is absolutely working, that's fine, and I will stick with it. But at the same time, I think it is incumbent on any person in any working relationship to be able to respond to the other person's special skill. I mean, if somebody's got marketing, and I'm every time I go to anybody to make a game, I will always say, what's the easiest way for you to do this? What's the easiest, most efficient way for you to make this game? And if they say to me, well, instead of having 12 cards doing that thing, if you had 10 cards doing that thing, it would be much less expensive. I'll go, well, let's do that. I can work around that, unless the design itself necessitates that 12 cards, in which case then it's a pill you have to swallow. But the number of times then a manufacturer of games has said to me, well, if I do this, then you'll be able to save like 20% on what you're making. And I'll go, well, do you know what? That thing doesn't bother me at all. I'm more than happy to make that
20% is a lot. Yeah. Damn straight. And you can pass that on to the consumer. You can save some money. You can sell it at a cheaper price and maybe get it to more people. Absolutely.
And the point being that if you listen to what somebody else can do, you can save yourself time and money and effort. So over and over again, it's like, so if you don't listen to this is what I hear a lot of designers who struggle. They say, oh, I don't want to show my design to other people. That's one of the biggest pitfalls. Or never be afraid to show your design to other people. There's very few designs that get stolen, really, isn't there? But and the other thing is, you know, this is what I'm going to make. This is the game I'm going to make, and I'm not going. This is my vision. It's definitely going to happen like this. And if you're not prepared to sort of like bend with the wind, then you'll end up. You know, you might get a nasty surprise at the end when you find that nobody else agrees.
So the quotes that I kind of brought up ages ago, you would say that you do actually work nicely with others, potentially.
If I say to you now, oh no, I work well with others now. I've learned my lesson, and I definitely. If I'd said that, and then somebody comes along and starts working with me, and I'm a nightmare, then they'll be saying, well,
I mean, what it sounds like to me, in all seriousness, and it seems like working with others should almost be like a topic all of its own. We can talk about working with others, with playtesters, with other people, because it sounds like, yeah, ultimately you've got your mindset about certain things, and certain things you just want to have your own way, but you still want to have other people with complementing expertise sets so that they can fill up the cracks.
Very much a case of if you get 3 designers in a room and you give them a set of dice, like JP and Greg and I did, there will always be. We have 3. They have 3 different creative people, and we all created our own designs, but it was we all got our and actually designing the games was fine, no problem at all. We got on really well. We helped each other immensely, but it's all the administrative stuff around that. Creative people are creative in every aspect of their lives, and so trying to discuss how we went about producing the game. So we've got our own 2 designs each in a 6 design game, and that's our thing. That's fine. Mine is mine. JP's is JP's. Greg's is Greg's, and we weren't stepping on each other's toes, and they're all different, and it's brilliant. But then we had to make one product between the three of us, and that's when it started to become a little bit not strained. It was lovely, but we talked a lot. There was an awful lot of talking, and as you know, I have a capacity to talk, and I think it's that point at which they were like, God, he talks so much. How do you shut him up?
That's the thing. Like with you, I think you need to be willing to have some day-long meetings. It's not an hour-long meeting with Andy. It will be a day-long meeting.
I don't want to have a day-long meeting with somebody. God, can you?
If it's something that you care about that much, I reckon it would turn into a day-long meeting with you. Sorry, a lot of this is. I don't want to cast what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to cast Andy Hopwood in a bad light or anything.
No, don't cast nasturtiums at me.
And I hope no one's, getting anything. Let's move on with the questions. Firstly,
I was about to say, I'd like to go on record saying I'm absolutely lovely.
Andy is actually lovely. I mean, should more people self-publish, or do you think fewer people should do it? Hot take. What's your hot take?
I always say the same thing to people is, you know how they always say everybody's got a novel in them. Well, I think basically what that phrase means is everybody's got a desire to create something, and if you want to create a board game, no matter how successful or non-successful it is, it feels good. And even if you only create one board game, then why not? And creating one card game made me realize that it was possible to do more. So I've done more. You might create one card game and go, do you know what? That's not for me. I don't want to do it. But you create that card game, you'll be very proud of that thing, and then you might find new skills. You might doing something, anything, and then finding you can't do it is just as valid as doing something you find you can. So I'd say everybody should have a little dabble. Why not?
But there's a difference between encouraging people to make the game and encouraging people to self-publish, because if they design it, maybe they want to pitch it, maybe they want to just make 10 copies and hand make those 10 copies and keep one for themselves and the other 9 go to friends.
Gotcha. I mistook the question. Right. So publishing as opposed to making. Yes.
And going back to collaborating, Alex mentions it's been great to go with the flow and come up with something that neither of you would have done alone. But talking about self-publishing, my gut reaction is that more people need to step back and ask themselves, why am I doing this? Because if you love I would say, my hot take is honestly, and this is a cop-out, the number of people doing it is probably about right, because I like to believe that people are having some questions going in, like, do I actually want to invest some time? Do I want to invest this amount of money? Do I want to be thinking about logistics of how to get things in if I'm self-publishing? Do I want to hire a fulfillment agency, or do I want... And it is a lot of work. And if you think that you're excited about that work, if you think that the desire for validation, for self-expression, for whatever, outweighs the amount of work that's going to go into that, then yeah, go for it. But if you feel like you don't have the time, you don't have the energy, you don't have the desire, then yeah, don't never feel like you have to do it. Like, honestly, I feel like more people should be making very small print runs just for themselves and like maybe wedding guests, or maybe for themselves and a very close circle. And
you know what, I think when you were just saying there, I think that for me, the true test, if you want to be there's a difference between being a designer and a publisher. I self-publish because I'm a designer that wants to get my designs out there in the quickest and most efficient way possible. And self-publishing is not the most financially sensible way of doing it, but it is the quickest way to get it done. I think if you were to say to me, would I like to publish somebody else's game? The answer would be no, I wouldn't. I do it because it's a necessity for the way I want to do things. Which when somebody comes to me with a game, I always say, it's like, I will give you any advice I can. I will tell you, you know, it's like, you know how I always say I want to pay other people for their expertise. I just give mine away. So I don't know why I can't do it as an even balance, but there you go. But so many people have come to me and said, will you publish my game? And I've always said, I'm not going to get into that because it's just, I'm not a publisher. That's not in my heart. It's something I do because I have to. So it's I think the answer to the question,
because you need these things to be real. Yeah.
I feel that I don't know why I need to make 100 of a game when one would do, but it's kind of like the desire. Okay, so if I was going to be critical of myself, I would say it's a little bit selfish, a little bit arrogant. It's a little bit a desire to leave your mark on the world. But on the other hand, there's a desire to share something you think will bring pleasure to others. And it's that wish to
idea. I mean, I share that. I think we come from a very similar place where it's a desire to improve the world, but also a desire to be the one who's done a bit of the improving.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
There is a little bit of you're not gonna. If there was no ego involved, then I wouldn't have tried to publish 100 games or whatever.
But that word ego is a really interesting one.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if you would publish somebody else, sorry, but if you say you would be prepared to publish somebody else's games, and you are a designer, then self-publishing is definitely a good idea, because then you're going to enjoy both processes.
I agree 100%, and if not, then think about it a bit, I guess. And it's a lot of introspection. We've kind of come up with 4 reasons to self-publish. Validation for the self, for the ego, the sense of control of having that artistic thing, the desire to not pitch, to not go through the hassle of, or to not keep having to pitch our thing until it's successful, to just be able to do it, to make it a reality. And the 4th thing is that there is a chance for greater rewards if you are able to sell 10,000 copies of a game yourself versus someone else selling 20,000 copies. You'll probably make more money selling 10,000 copies yourself. But how would you rank those things? And for my self-publishing personally, I'm going to put it, control is number 1 for me. Validation is number 2. The desire to not have to go through the pitching process for every single thing that I'm doing is number 3. And then number 4 is the desire for greater rewards. Because honestly, I think I would. I'm not money averse. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to, if someone says, hey, I would give you loads of money to do this, I'm not going to say, oh, no, you only need to give me less. Like, it depends. Like, if it's a friend, fair enough, we might work out something. I might say, hey, I know you're in a bit bad spots, like, let me, but look, if a big company is going to offer me loads of money for something, I'm going to probably take it. But for me, when I look at the LDEC, when I look at the fact that I want to have these busy budget bags with like just cards, it's because I want to have done the art myself. Do you know what I mean? I want that control. And yes, I want that validation. I want other people to play it and to enjoy it, and for me to say, wow, all these other people played it. And then, yeah, not pitching. Yeah, that's kind of, I honestly don't, that at this point, that and the financial rewards are kind of at the bottom with regards to self-publishing. And I should say this is specifically for self-publishing. There have been designs that I have done, that I have pitched, that a company has taken away at Cannes 2020, and they keep talking about it. And then they wanted to test it with kids, but they couldn't because of pandemic. And, you know, there was a game that was like, I'm specifically trying to make another game that could be a hit, if you know what I mean, that could sell 100,000 copies. And that to me is like financial success, because I want to have some things that I do for the financial success, but then I have other projects that I do for the ego, let's be honest.
I agree very much in what you've said. And I would say that in terms of, I don't think, I mean, if you want to make a game that's just going to sell a lot of things, make something that involves poo and stepping on it, and don't worry about any kind of...
No, that's been done.
Yeah, but you could easily make a blue one, not blue poo. I mean, you know, alien poo game, stepping game. There's the next one. So, but what I'm saying is that if you wanted to make a game that sells lots, you don't need to invest a huge amount of time in design. The games that are well designed, that have sold lots of games, were well designed before they were intended to be well designed before they were intended to be popular. So I would almost say, in terms of when it comes to self-publishing, what you've got there, you're breaking the list into two. So self-publishing is designer publisher. It's the two strands. The reward. Well,
in my situation, it's also artists. I'm like the visual designer for most of, for all of my self-published games so far.
Well, that counts. I wish I could draw. I would love that, because I was thinking about it just the other day, saying if you're the designer of a game, then, you know, because it's the artwork, if you like, that often that sells the game. So the designer is not somebody who's making the designer has not got a fast track to money. You don't have a way of saying what I'm doing is going to earn me X money. An artist has a little bit more of that, because they can say, well, I'm going to spend time drawing this, and then this could be sold. It's a thing that could be sold. And the publisher is the closest to the money, because obviously they're saying, I'm going to create a product that somebody will buy, and that's that. But I don't think as publisher designer, I think as designer publisher. And I think I don't do what I do. I don't publish. I suppose in a way, yes, for greater rewards, it is there, because as a designer, you expect zero money. As a publisher, you expect some money. So I'm basically publishing my time as a designer into some kind of income, but it's not profit. It's, for me,
I disagree strongly, by the way, with the notion that a designer should expect zero money.
Okay, I expect zero money. I agree with you. Most designers should expect some recompense. I have to say that
that's not even what I'm saying. I'm not saying that designers should look. People, if you make good art and if you have lots of people enjoying your stuff, then for sure you should see a bit of those rewards. But I don't think that being paid for your art is a right by any means. I think it's a great privilege. And I am
Sorry, I was merely pointing to, you've got something slightly more tangible.
Yeah.
It's something, it's more of a, if you like, it's a horrible word to use, but it's more of a commodity than a design. Than the rules itself.
I'm laughing at what Alex says. As a publisher, you should aim for zero net profit, as it is beneficial for tax purposes. Isn't it like under 12 grand?
Basically, there's only been 1 year in the last 10 years that as a designer I've made any profit. I made £18 1 year, and I was over the moon. So it's not something. If I sell all, yeah, I am a sole trader. If I sold all of my Dairy and Dust bunnies, I can expect to just about cover all the costs of making Dairy and Dust bunnies. So as a publisher, I don't think I'm particularly good, but it's the only way to get my designs out there. So for me, control, you're right. As a publisher, control is up there, but I don't think, if you're talking about self-publishing as opposed to designing, it's very hard to split these up for me.
No, I'm talking about why you self-publish rather than pitching, rather than not publishing, not
the effort of publishing, it's more. I think I was going to agree with your list saying control is at the top, then validation, but I actually think all the control I feel in terms of design is to do with design. And validation is probably more important for me when it comes to self-publishing, because it validates what I've been doing in the design room. It says, this what you just did for those last however many hours has been worth it because you're now making a real thing. So in a way, the publishing is the manifestation of the design process. So that validates me as a designer. The control is up there. Yeah, absolutely. The concept of the process of self-publishing, I can control what's happening. But I've already said I'm not precious about that. If somebody took my design and changed it quite significantly in terms of my vision, but kept the core values, I'd be okay with that. So control isn't too high. Not pitching, I actually might move up. I might say the effort of going and contacting publishing and the rejection you will get, you will have to contact, because the publishers are lovely people, don't be wrong, I've met a lot of lovely publishers, but they're not, if they open their door and say, we're looking for designs, they'll get 100 people walk in the room. And they'll be going, do you know what? This is really hard now. I can't make 100 games. I want to make like 2 or 1. So how do I pick out which ones are the best ones? Because they're all good. So yes, I think it's not necessarily harder to pitch. It's harder to self-publish. But pitching has
its own emotional labor.
Demoralizing. It's demoralizing to pitch.
And yeah, J. Fool's Guard, I mean, someone might have said it before me, but I've said this a few times, that it's choosing the hassle of self-publishing over the hassle of pitching.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
And yeah.
But greater rewards, you do get greater rewards financially, I think, if you publish than if you design. Because if you just design and then you make a prototype, it costs you your time and effort and a little bit of money to make the prototype.
But I think that thanks to the advertising budget and marketing ability and ability of Gigamic to, when I pitched it, they said, oh yeah, we'll do at least 20,000 as our initial print run. And then if, it does well, we'll aim to go up to, bigger numbers with each print run. And then that's not something that I could dream of doing. Sorry, I should rephrase. I can literally dream of lots of things. I could dream of nanobots, producing one copy of the game for literally every person on Earth. I can dream of lots of things.
2 nights ago, I came second to Will Ferrell in a karaoke competition. I sang American Pie. It went down well, but he won. So that was a dream, by the way. Just
yeah, but we can dream of a lot. But the point is that, yes, that's not something that I would realistically have been able to do for, a decade or more. And
would they have done that? I know you said you had offers straight off the bat for In a Bind, but do you think that's how that? I mean, because every element, once you designed the game and you go out there, it's because in a way, self-publishing is pitching. It is still, there's an element of here's
It
my
can
game.
be.
And I made 250 copies of Flipside, and I sent quite a few of those to publishers. So it for me, it's a way, it's like pitching, but trying to pay for the prototypes. You know, pay for the games you're making by selling most of them, have some left over to send out and pitch. And every game that go, I mean, you know, Coiled Spring made Dodeca because somebody I had given a copy of Number Wang to played it with the Coiled Spring team. If that isn't a pitch, I don't know what is. I mean, and we were just lucky that they enjoyed it, and we managed to get the time with them. But it meant that they weren't. I think this is important for publishers. You can't just go, and there isn't really a very easy process other than the send us your details of your game and we'll have a look at it. There's not a really easy way to sit down and have a personal connection with a publisher and say, play my game, this will make you some money. Because effectively that's what you're saying. And, you know, you're selling yourself because you're selling whether or not you're amenable to work with. You're selling your product and not just how good the game is. And the best game I ever played was in my local library. The librarian had made a game, and it was a super simple roll and move game. But all the time, you know, you're talking about in a bind and having lots of different things going on. There was, in the middle of that game, there was a square you landed on. There was a pass the parcel round, and it was absolutely fantastic. And it was just like, but there's no way you could make that game in any way, shape, or form as a commercial product. So, you know, that was lovely.
For sure, having something that's just for this library or just for this one person, and I definitely want to spend some time. Maybe I'll do it as a treat once I finish Categorical. I don't think McCall watches my show, but I've got this idea with like lots of pictures of McCall. It's going to be exactly like Grabble, you know, my own game, but instead of letters and a border, it's some pictures that have something to do with McCall, and that's just going to be, maybe I print 2 copies, maybe I print literally just one. I think I'll probably want a second one for myself, but maybe even do 3, like 2 for McCall, so McCall can. But anyway, that's like going to be a wee bit of a present, and there's something lovely about that. There's something about being able to bring your friends into something, and people have been asking, now you have the published game and it's got a good reception, wouldn't it be much more valuable as a game pitched to another publisher like in a bind? And yes, that, and Forts was originally self-published. Bargain Quest, have any of your games then be published by another publisher? Like, yes, Dodeca, which was not originally self-published, but you were ready to do that. Is that right? You were ready?
Yeah, well, it was in the playtesting stage, and it was Coiled Spring took it up. But I think the only game that I've made, Mindleaf was the one taken by XV Games, and they made.
And that's like Safebreaker by Dave Cousins. You know, Safebreakers. I've got the little talk box version, but then there's a really nice, big, arguably overproduced version with, but it is really nice with little magnetic things. And yeah, Dodeca I'll still enjoy, like the wooden thing that I've got, which doesn't have the bag, but it's got the modular board, which is quite cool. And
sorry, just for clarity, that's Mindleaf. You said Dodeca. I don't want people thinking that there's not a wooden version of Dodeca out there.
Thank you very much for correcting me. Yes, I've got the wooden version of Mindleaf.
I mean, the new version's wooden as well, but it's just.
But I've got the wooden board.
Yes.
Fine.
I
mean, you shake your head like you've still got a few of them, I'm sure.
I don't know. Somebody lost one of their wooden board pieces because I had a fire, so I had to go back to the house and just search all through the garage to see if I could find a wooden board. So yes, I have many different bits. I've got lots of bits of wood that I've never thrown away, which I really should, because they're just getting up. When I made Zoom Zoom Kaboom, the 6 characters in Zoom Zoom Kaboom, the second one, they were all people. They were all.
But they're all puns.
They're all puns, but the artwork.
Okay, the faces. Okay.
The faces were taken from their Facebook picture. So so Cara Gander is she wanted to be Lady Danger, and I said, your name's Cara. I'm not going to not use that, for goodness sakes. And then it's all like that's Sharon, that's my wife. So that's I took
hold it up
photograph.
longer. How is that Sharon? That.
Well, I gave her a different coloured hair. I had a bit of artistic license, but the point is, I took their and there's one of me as well here somewhere. That's me. So that's me. So from my Facebook, there you go.
Oh yeah.
So I just took a photograph and then went over it with an Illustrator program and did it. And that's been lovely, being able to do that. And when Neil took it, wanted he hadn't got a copy of the second edition, so I did him his own character called Nearly Overtook It, and he's the one I was going to make one game of. All Neil's are rubbish. I was going to make that game for him, just one copy for him, because he said he would always buy my games, but I thought.
And Andy, you know the cards are technically made of wood, says Alex.
Not my cards. My cards are made from baby pandas, which I have specially crushed in machines. No, baby can. Sorry, not all of the baby panda. We throw most of them away. We just use the kidneys. Sorry.
No, please don't. Please don't.
I don't know. You should never take a kidney from a baby panda. Rule number 1.
Alan obviously talking about, paying corporation tax is unfortunate, but you want to actually pay the tax because then it's a commercial success. But I know that some shops were talking about how if you're, I can't remember what the limit is, it's something like 80,000 turnover, something like that, where if you've got marginally over that, you're actually earning less than if you were earning like 75. So you
start paying VAT.
Exactly. So you've either got to sail way past it, or you've got to try and stay under it.
But at that stage, you're obviously claiming back the VAT. So it's marginal. It really is marginal. Yes, you're right.
I mean, it's not what I've heard from some people.
You hold off. You hold off going over the threshold.
And for sure, like my ambition is to sell one day hundreds of thousands per year of the L deck, across the world. That is my goal. But let's try and wrap this up.
Can I just say though, but if your ambition is to sell 100,000 copies of a game, you're no longer, and somebody else isn't doing that for you, you're no longer going to have any time to design games. You're literally your whole.
Well, that's why I want other people to get involved.
But then you won't be self-publishing, will you? You won't be the publisher, then, will you?
Well, I'll be in charge of things.
Right. So I would say if you're in charge of a publishing company, it's not like you've paid lots of people to do all your work and then you're going to go away and design games. It's like you're working 9 to 5 as the person in charge of a publishing company. And then you will find, this is the one thing that I would love to do away with. It's the drain on my time of all the things that go hand in hand with making and publishing games, which get in the way of me designing new ones. If I sold 100,000 copies of a game, I'd be over the moon, but I wouldn't be designing new games. Stretching time. Who's that?
Stream Elements, it's my robot. So
what? Really?
Yeah, every 40 minutes.
It's
the
not
robots.
That's not a person.
No, Stream Elements is a robot that I gave a command, so there's a timer for every 40 minutes to stretch.
So Stream Elements is genuinely not a human being.
Correct.
God, I hate Stream Elements.
What? Why?
Well, you have to be mean to somebody, and it's nice to be mean to something that hasn't got feelings.
Oh, you don't know about the robots. But okay.
Look, if the robots are coming for me, Bears, I don't stand a chance. I'll be as rude to them as I like. Thank you very much.
Penultimate question. Were there any surprises along the way that you feel a burning need to get off your chest right now? My big surprise was just how much marketing is actually needed. I think that Vince Vergonjon of Lucky Duck Games said it really well, that art is basically what sells a game initially, and then the rules will kind of keep that game selling, if you know what I mean. So the package, the physical table presence, that might get someone to buy their first copy, but yeah, for it to actually become something that continues to sell well, then you've got to have really good rules. But it's all about that marketing initially. Okay,
going back to my crippling self-doubt, people running up to my stand to buy a game. So when you're actually out there standing there with your game in your hand and saying, I've got this to sell, and somebody coming up and actually saying, I'm going to give you some money for that, and then I'm going to go away and play it, that was a surprise. 100 people can tell me this game's great, but I still won't believe anyone's going to buy the thing.
And yeah, there's been some delightful moments. I think at some point you just need to believe other people, and but with the benefits of hindsight and experience, it sounds like you're going to do a mixture of licensing and self-publishing. Would you have self-published? Is there anything you would have done differently?
Question. Well, now Kickstarter's in the mix. I think what I would do is I would look at the game I've made. So let's say the game I'm making right now, which I'm aiming at a publisher, and I'm hoping they'd be interested. If that publisher isn't interested, I don't think I would then turn to Kickstarter to make it myself, because it would be quite I would need a team. So that's the point. I think on my own I can.
Is it because of the components involved?
Well, there is not just the components, but there's the concept of the artwork and the marketing and stuff like that. If you're going to make a big game, you need a big team, I think. And I think if I was going to make a simple card game that was fun and simple and straightforward and would tick a lot of people's boxes and be like, there are some things that sell well on Kickstarter and some things that don't. And so therefore, that's what I would aim for that. And there are some things like if I just wanted to make 100 copies of a game because I thought it would be quite niche and I just wanted to sell it to my audience, I would go down that route and just do it myself and sell it myself. And I think then there's pitching. I think it's that you've got to try it all. We've been talking.
Oh, you don't have to, but it sounds like Andy Hopwood has to try it all.
But no, we've been talking about whether or not pitching is a good idea, self-publishing is a good idea, Kickstarter's a good idea. But in a way, depends on the game and it depends on the person. So I would say every designer should be prepared to try it all, and then you will find out which one you is the least amount of hassle, or hopefully which one you enjoy. So don't be put off. If you tried pitching and you hated it, then it's just not. It doesn't mean you can't publish or design games. Just try a different tack. Try it.
And I agree with everything you said. I would also like to do multiple things depending on the exact project. Alex mentions, I would really like to get more involved in this industry. There are a few publishers, manufacturers, journalists hiring, but the positions are very competitive.
Yeah.
And self-publishing is one route in. And that is definitely a possibility. Another route might be, starting your own blog, starting to write things. I mean, look at Adam Porter, Adam in Wales, who started those video series. And I think that Adam said that they got a lot of publishers who actually reached out to Adam because of this video series, that it's nicely edited. It's not whizzy or anything, but, you know, it's got some cuts, so there's no long stammering or breaks. Adam's a good person at talking. There, when Adam talks about a game, there will be the game and some graphic that says, "Oh yeah, this is the game," and a little photo of the game along it.
And again, it comes back down to what you're comfortable doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, open an online shop. So if you like selling, if you're good at selling stuff, then open a shop. There's lots of different ways of going about it. One thing you can do is
play to your strengths. Maybe you enjoy going to conventions. Maybe you want to start demoing for people.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Alan and all three of us, probably everyone else, it's humans. Synchronicity.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Right, I think I'm going to have to go.
Yeah, I have to finish up. That works out perfectly. Are you happy to stay with me for the recap and wrap up?
I am.
Okay, well, we talked about a fair bit. I've decided we talked, I think this was before we started recording, that I decided that pronouns are going to be the topic for next Friday, because I was deciding that every Friday would have like a nominal topic to kind of keep conversation going if people don't pop in, but I'm going to talk about pronouns. And we talked about learning, why we self-publish. We talked about learning. We talked about control, freedom to do what you want. Yeah, some money returns, about the pride, about the validation. We talked about giving shout-outs to our friends. We talked about whether it's an albatross or a millstone around your neck. We talked about putting codes in places, not as a thing, shouting about it and using it as marketing, but doing it as a matter of pride because we can, because we don't even expect other people to do it, but maybe having those going the extra mile. And yes, there's always a question, do you spend that extra week making something slightly better if you think it won't have a financial return necessarily? Well, with your publisher economics hat on, probably not. We talked about Kickstarter. We talked about the emotional baggage that there might be with Kickstarter, the responsibility. We talked about marketing, emails. We talked very briefly about reviewer relationships, about getting lots of copies to reviewers, about printing a whole bunch, getting extra copies to publishers. We talked about Kickstarters and crowdfunding and, yeah, just how you can fund a game, and about the hassle, about the ego, about listening to expertise, about working with other people and having some things that we just think they need to be this way, about working with others. We talked about the notion of some things being set, and then let me quickly skim through to see if there's anything else. We talked about Janice and Andy and our own games. We talked about Braid, and yeah, we gave some notions of desires. We decided that yes, games are as artistically relevant as everything else. They are an expression of self, not just in the writing involved, but in the mechanics, in the way that Zoom Zoom Kaboom, you know, like there's a lovely mechanism of trying to not re-roll any of the die or you go kaboom, and but like the frivolity, this silly, it's kind of, it feels reflective of Andy Hopwood in some way. Do you know what I mean? And
what? Pushing yourself so far that you explode.
No. I'm not saying that you do that. I'm saying that the game, like the culture it creates.
So, yeah.
And yeah, that is the end of the show. So thank you very much. If you want to check me out, then of course I am Stuff by Bez everywhere on Twitter, on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, and please join the Discord, stuffbybez.com/Discord, where we will talk about board game design or whatever. And I want to thank everyone who's been part of this. everyone who's given lovely questions in the comments. A special shout out to Alex for moderating, and a special shout out to Janice and Andy Hopwood, amazing guests. And Andy, where do you like to be found?
Oh, hopwoodgames.com. That's where you can find me. And yes, I don't have a million different places you can find me. You can just go on the website. Yes. Oh yeah, I am. Yes, there's things on Board Game Geek as well.
And you're also on Twitter technically, but you don't really use it.
I don't know. No.
I think you might even be on Instagram. I think I managed to tag you there.
A friend of mine is taking pictures for me and putting them on Instagram. Thank you very much, Gabby. See, I do work well with others sometimes. And thank you very much, Bez. Thank you for having me on.
No, it's been lovely. And the final question that I ask to everyone, not just my guests, but everyone who's watching, and feel free to say anything that you're up to, anything you want to share, whether you want to see something that you're currently really enjoying or something you're looking forward to doing and you want to spread that joy, or something that you feel like you should do and you just want to let other people know, so maybe it's feels more like an achievement. Andy, is there anything you want to share?
Yes, there is something I want to share. I feel what I should do now is go downstairs and spend some time with my family. I love being on. I always do, but they've got back from walking the dog now, and it's time for lunch, I think.
Well, I will let you skedaddle. It has been lovely. If you want to head off literally now, I will let you head off now while I read out everyone else's things.
Thank you, everybody.
Lots of love, Andy.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And other people, Alan is going to have Kingmaker, but also Persian chicken for lunch. What does he mean by this? I am curious to know. Is that possibly with a recipe are you, instead of lamb, using chicken? Or is this a recipe that you knew already? I myself am definitely going to be eating something soon. I've not had breakfast yet. I don't know what I'll have. I'm going to be taking it easy. I'm going to be writing some, descriptions, writing some questions for the interviews and stuff for the week ahead. Thinking about some games a wee bit, maybe playing something, maybe sending out an email. That would be good. And J Fool's Guard is working a wee bit on a small project and getting some food for sure. Apparently, Persian chicken is made by Charlie from a recipe. And by Alan, lots of love. And, whoops, I didn't mean to there we go. So for my next streams, if you want to check out my next streams, then look at stuffbybez.com/streams. Tomorrow, I am going to be reviewing your stuff. So if you want to send me stuff, then please send it to stuffbybez@gmail.com. So if you're sending me rules for a game, please try to make it a short thing. If it's a long thing, you can send it, but I probably won't look at. Honestly, I think I've only got a couple of emails about this. So yeah, send me your ideas. I'm not planning to, or send me your hook for your game and then I will review the hook. Or if you want to send me a piece of music or a video that's 3 minutes or less, I will review that. And I will give my considered opinion. I'm not going to say that I am an expert in any of these things, but I will consider it and I will give my opinion. So hopefully that will be of some use. Anyway, so Monday, what am I up to on Monday? Oh yes, we are discussing ownership of narrative in game books with Peter Harley Scott. That's exciting. Discussing pitching with Alan and Matthew and Rita, playing some Nanomuckle, meeting Jenham, an amazing musician, discussing translation with Maisie, having a friendly Friday forum and talking about pronouns and also sharing any news and anything we've been up to. and next week, next Saturday, mentoring Dutch Yoda, and all sorts of things. You check out the calendar if you want. Feel free to share, spread the word. If any of those sound interesting, if you feel like this was a discussion that someone else that you know might find interesting, then please share the word. And yeah, now if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook or indeed Twitch after the fact, this won't make very much sense, but I am now going to do what is called a raid, and just looking out to see who is around. We've got let's go with Hannah Jane. Let's see what this is all about. Let's go and check out Hannah Jane Butterfield. And if you want to join the raid, then please do copy paste some or all of that raid message. And that brings me to the end of the show. Thank you once more to everyone. Lots of love, and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye, Alan. Bye-bye, J Foolsguard. Bye-bye, Alex. Bye-bye, everyone. If you're watching this after the fact, bye-bye, and I hope you have a lovely day. And obviously, feel free to comment. Bye-bye. 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 Okay, this is really the end. Bye-bye.